Debt. For millions of us, it's so much more than just a number on a statement. It's this constant weight, right? A major source of stress. It's just a central feature of modern life. But why is that? Is it just a series of bad individual choices, or is there some bigger system at play? Well, today, we're going to dig into one theory that tries to answer that exact question.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. We're going to start with that personal feeling of debt, then get into the core idea of what's called a dual economy. We'll see how this theory gets applied to the 2008 mortgage crisis, take a look at a government rescue program, and then zoom out to see how this whole framework might explain our national priorities.
All right, let's kick things off with that feeling, that personal experience of being in debt that so many of us know all too well.
The analysis we're digging into today really kicks off with this big fundamental question, and it suggests that how you answer it might depend entirely on which part of the economy you happen to live in.
And wow, this slide just lays that divide out perfectly. The theory argues there are two completely different financial realities out there. For one group, finance is a tool, something you use to build wealth or handle big things. But for the other group, it's often felt as a burden, something that actually traps them. So, what's causing this massive split?
And that gets us right to the heart of this analysis, a theory called the dual economy. So the idea here is that the U.S. economy isn't just one big, unified system. It's actually split into two separate ones. On one side, you've got the FTE sector, that's finance, technology, and electronics, and on the other side, you've got the low-wage sector. And the theory argues these two groups are basically playing by completely different sets of rules.
Okay, so this table is super helpful because it really breaks down the differences. The FTE sector's main assets are financial, and they tend to have way more assets than debt. Now, the low-wage sector's biggest asset is often their home, which, as we know, can turn into a huge liability real fast. But that last row, that's the real kicker, right? According to this theory, that difference in political influence changes the whole game.
Okay, so that's the theory in a nutshell. Now, let's put it to the test with a huge real-world event, the 2008 financial crisis. Looking at it through this lens, the crisis wasn't some random event that just popped up out of nowhere. It really started back in the 1970s, when wages for a lot of workers started to go flat. So, to keep up, families began borrowing against their biggest asset, their homes. And when home values went through the roof in the early 2000s, this became the go-to strategy. Until, boom, the bubble burst and millions were left buried in debt.
And here's the really crucial takeaway from all that. This massive pile of household debt absolutely crushed consumer spending. And the argument is, when a huge chunk of the population can't afford to spend money, the entire national economy just slows to a crawl.
So after the crash, the government did step in with a program that was supposed to help, but did it actually do what it said on the tin?
The program was called HAMP, the Home Affordable Modification Program. And on paper, its goal was pretty simple: help homeowners who are in trouble by reworking their mortgages to be more affordable.
But what happened in reality? Well, just look at these numbers. It's pretty staggering. The very banks that were supposed to be helping rejected almost everyone. Citibank denied 87% of applications. JP Morgan Chase, 84%. Bank of America, 80%. The help that was promised just never got to the vast majority of people who desperately needed it. And this quote from the Treasury Secretary at the time, Timothy Geithner, is incredibly revealing. This program will help foam the runway. The analysis we're looking at interprets that to mean the program wasn't really designed to save homeowners at all. It was designed to give the banks, the FTE sector, a soft landing by slowing down the foreclosure crisis instead of stopping it.
Okay, let's pull the camera back now, because the source argues this wasn't just a one-time thing. That same dynamic we just saw, where the FTE sector's stability is prioritized, it supposedly plays out on a much bigger stage with our national priorities.
So here, the analysis makes a really interesting distinction. On one hand, you have the stated national debt, which gets a ton of political attention. But then you have these other commitments, like Social Security. The author claims that while there's this huge political push to cut the first kind of debt, the second kind, well, that's often painted as a luxury we just can't afford.
And you can see this same framework pop up in all kinds of other big policy debates. Take student loan debt, for example. The argument is that widespread debt relief for students is framed as an unaffordable burden, while bailing out the financial sector is treated as an absolute necessity. And the source claims you see the exact same pattern in debates over Social Security, healthcare, and even voting rights. To really drive home this point about national priorities, the analysis brings up this one single number, $13 billion. That was the value of just one military contract for one company in Iraq.
And that just forces you to ask a really powerful question about trade-offs, right? The source contrasts that single payment with what it describes as chronically underfunded domestic needs like schools or infrastructure, making us ask, where is our money really going?
So at the end of the day, this whole analysis leaves us with this final thought. If our economy really is split in two, with different rules and different priorities for each half, then every policy we make is a choice. So the big question isn't just about balancing the books, it's about whose economy we're choosing to build and what kind of country that choice is creating.